10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, how is everybody? I hope everyone's doing well. This is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, here with you today, talking at the No Soundbites Allowed podcast, of course, on the Exceptional Conservative Network. And we're going to have a good show today. And I'm looking forward to speaking with everybody here. It's always good to be with you guys. You always make the difference, and I'm so happy to be there. So we've got a couple of things we got to talk about today. A few things that are going on and that are of interest. And I think let's start off with, first of all, as everyone may be aware, Mueller, Congress is talking with Mueller. They're grilling him about the Barr, Secretary Barr, is being grilled about the Mueller report and trying to get it out. Now, it's already been said it's going to go out. Don't go with the smoke screen about that. It is a fact. It was always coming out. Everyone knew it. There is information that is required by law to be removed from the document, which is not new. Everyone knew that. That's standard. And so we're going to see that it's going to come out. It's going to be redacted at some points. Some of the information is because of there's the secrecy of our intelligence operations. So that's going to have a factor. You're going to see that some of the documents are going to be hidden because of the process, and that's just standard. So this is nothing new, but you're going to hear everyone screaming about it. It's not a big deal. We'll wait for the report. The big thing is there is a report coming out in June, expected, on how did this whole process start. Who started this? What document, which was, of course, the fake dossier that was promoted by the Hillary campaign. This is a fact. And that fake document, that's going to be the thing that's going to be coming out. And that's what's being investigated right now. You haven't heard a lot about that, oddly, because the Democrat Party, I think, is not very pleased about revealing that they paid for a fake document, which then led to an investigation of a presidential candidate, and in effect is somewhat rigging of the entire presidential process, something that they are known for because they did that to Bernie Sanders in 2016, as has been proven, and there's some issues there. So I don't think they want to talk much about that, but that's the takeaway in terms of the breaking news out there. That's the thing to be looking for, the report in June about how did this investigation actually start? Where did this whole collusion question come from? Because that's important, because there is no evidence of it, and that's the big deal. But that's not going to be the focus of what we're talking about here today. But that's just the latest bit of news. The thing I want to focus on is something that you probably haven't heard a whole lot about. And I'm not speaking about Iran. Obviously, yesterday, Mike Pompeo came out and he mentioned the United States is putting the Iranian Red Guard, their elite guard, on the terrorist watch list where they belong because they do promote terror around the world. Even as Iran continues to, every time Iran has anything to say about America, what did they say? Death to America. Doesn't matter if they have or do not have the Iran nuclear deal. When we had the Iran nuclear deal, go back, check out the news. Even while President Obama was talking about it, and John Kerry, Secretary of State, was speaking about this deal and how great it was, look at the news, especially BBC News. They were reporting that Iran was screaming about how they want to kill all Americans and that the Iran nuclear deal would not stop them from killing all Americans, which is their ultimate goal. I mean, this is just a bad place led by bad leaders, and we have to be very careful about that. And that's something that you don't hear a whole lot about. So they're obviously upset that they have been listed and officially recognized as terrorist organization. Iran's response was, of course, death to America. Something that you didn't probably hear in the news, and you should have. But again, that is not what I wanted to talk about today. But I do also want to mention one other thing before we get started on the main thing, is on Thursday, April 11th at 1:30, I will have Dr. Paul Nathanson. He is the author of Spreading Misandry. He'll be coming in talking about his book, but also, more importantly, he's going to be speaking with us about what's going on in the presidential election. What's going on with the presidential candidates as we see them running around apologizing for being born, apologizing for being men, for being white, for not being the PC perfection that the Democratic Party seems to be leaning for, not being democratic socialists, and not being the perfect gender identity politics kind of candidate, which I think is important that we talk about this, because you shouldn't be. That's not a requirement. Being a certain sex or a certain skin color should never be a qualifying or non-qualifying factor in any election. I don't care what party that you're part of. And the fact that they are really deserves and demands us to speak about this. And what is the impact of this? Not just in the 2020 race, but for America in total. What is the message we are telling men, boys, women, everybody? What are we saying about what it is to be an American as we go forward in this decade? So, that being said, what did I want to talk about? What is the big thing that we wanted to speak about? I want to talk about Chicago. Chicago, the news came out, and this is from WGN 9 News out of Chicago. And on April 8th, they reported that over the weekend, this weekend that just passed, my birthday weekend, 24 people were shot, 5 of them fatally, because it was a warm day. Because we had a warm weekend in Chicago, it is notorious that every time there's a warm weekend, Chicago erupts into shootings every single time. And this is from, and you can look it up yourself at WGN 9 News, and you'll see that in their report, they mention that some of the people who were shot, 4 children under the age of 16 were among those who were shot. That's incredible. 4 children. Another 2 other children and 4 adults were shot in another incident. This is crazy. This is crazy. And I bring this up because Chicago is the most regulated, gun, Second Amendment regulated city in the United States. They have every single regulation you could possibly think of and that Democrats have ever asked for, and it hasn't helped make anyone safer. I mean, how bad is it over there? Because let's really look at this, because people don't really get the idea of how bad it is in Chicago. And we really need to have that. In Chicago, according to the Chicago Tribune, which keeps a track week by week of all the people who have been shot, so far, as of April 8th, they reported 481 people have been shot in Chicago. Yes, that is 89 less people than in 2018, but that's not a good number. 481 people puts them higher than in 2013, higher than in 2014, right in line, almost exactly the same as in 2015. Almost, they're very close to where they were last year. Relatively, this is an average year for Chicago. This is the Chicago norm, okay? And if you look at how many people who have actually been murdered in Chicago, how many homicides have happened in Chicago so far this year? 97 people. Again, from the Chicago Tribune, they follow this every week. This is as of Sunday, the 7th. 97 people. Now, the good news is that's 27 less than in 2018. Oh, joy. except it's more than the number of people in 2013, more than the number of people in 2014. It is essentially the exact same as in 2015. Again, this is an average year in Chicago. And this is the city that is known for having the most gun control in the nation. And that should tell you something right there. And this is why you don't hear about Chicago in the news. This is why you don't hear politicians quoting anything about Chicago and the success there. The reason why is there is no success in Chicago. There is no success in gun control. It doesn't work. And I'm not saying this because I think we should have no gun control whatsoever. That's absolutely false. That's not true. We need gun control. Well, let me rephrase that. Not gun control. We need to address the key and core issues that affect people being murdered with firearms. And we need to be honest about it. We need to actually pay attention to what the real numbers are and what are the real effects. Because when we get lost and we start talking about stupid things, we start attacking people for ownership, we attack people for being law-abiding citizens, we benefit no one. No one wins in that scenario. And that's a problem. And we have to address that problem. Because if we don't, it just fails. Everything goes wrong. So let me explain what I mean about this. When we look at what's going on with the various gun laws, and I bring up a couple of cases for this, we're told you're going to be safer. If we pass, in particular, the red flag legislation, if we pass more gun control, if we make safe storage laws, if we make it harder for law-abiding citizens to be able to have a firearm, you're going to be safe. This is the lie. And I know it's a lie. If you remember, it was back on January 23rd of this year in New York State, as the New York State government under Governor Cuomo was going out there, and they, and you can go to my website, Voss Political Commentary, and you'll be able to see this. The article was New York State Gun Law versus Islamberg Bombing Plot. And if you check that out, you'll see that on the 23rd, as Governor Cuomo, as the New York State single-party political government decided to go out and create more gun laws and more restrictions on law-abiding citizens, the result was, very simply, that 4 kids under the age of 20 were making bombs to kill people in Islamberg, New York. And nothing about any of the new laws would have stopped them. In fact, the only thing that stopped them was the existing laws and law enforcement paying attention and doing their jobs. That's what stopped them. That's how we prevented that crime from happening. Because bombs are not, they're already illegal. There's nothing legal about that. You can't make a bomb legally. And these kids accumulated firearms and they accumulated bombs in a plot that would not have been stopped by a red flag legislation, that would not have been stopped by any new law that's been, or new regulation that we're hearing about, the safe storage laws. None of that's stopping it. Being able to buy ammo online would not have stopped this. It doesn't make you safer. What did make people safe are the existing laws, people being aware of what these kids were doing, and notifying the law enforcement, and law enforcement taking action with the laws that exist right now. And that saved people's lives. But you'll say to me, well, Mike, that's just isolated. That's not accurate. That's only just one case. And that's not true. That's not true. Because, let's take a look at it. According to the Wall Street Journal, in another highly unreported article, and again, just like the Islamberg, there's very little information about this. Almost no one heard about this law, about this incident at Islamberg. You don't hear that on the national news. Guess what you also don't hear on the national news? that a man was arrested for plotting a terror attack in the Washington, D.C. region, actually at National Harbor in Maryland, which is where CPAC 2019, which I attended, was there. And you saw my coverage. You can see the Ferris wheel that's just outside of the convention center where I was at, and doing a live broadcast and speaking with people with interviews. And you can see that in some of the images that I have that I've done on this, and you can see it in the coverage that we were speaking about in that same area, a highly active convention center for Washington, D.C., with politicians, politicos, pundits, all being involved in that area on a regular basis, as well as regular innocent citizens walking around, just living their lives, vacations, working. This is what he was going to do. There was going to be a bomb. He wasn't going to use a bomb. He wasn't going to use a gun. He couldn't get a gun. He didn't drive. So what did this lunatic decide to do? Well, according to the Wall Street Journal and all the major news media, the answer is this insanely crazy individual decided he was going to go and do exactly what was done in Nice, France. He got a U-Haul, which I believe was stolen, and planned to drive the U-Haul through the public. He was going to use a car to kill people. And we've seen that happen in Las Vegas. We've seen that used in attacks in New York City. We've seen people decide that they're going to use a truck or a vehicle to kill innocent human beings just because they can, Americans and French and around the world. Guess what? Not a single red flag legislation will protect you from that. None of the gun control laws will protect you from that. We're not making people safe. Now, you could go, if we were to follow the absurd mindset that, well, all that means is we need more regulation. So that means we have to, get rid of all U-Haul trucks? We have to get rid of pickup trucks? We have to get rid of, we're going to get rid of each and every type of car that's ever used in this kind of manner because some evil so-and-so, I don't curse here, but a very evil, demented criminal person, because every one of those crazy people decide that they want to go out and attack and kill people, that we should go and say, oh, well, we got to get rid of that. So you wouldn't even be able to have a steak knife. You wouldn't be able to have a fork. You wouldn't be able to use a baseball bat. These are all things that crazy people use to kill not just one, not just two, many people. They use swords. They use everything. Because if you're crazy and you're deranged, you'll use anything that's available to you. And you're not being made safer. In fact, you're not even being told the truth about this. And I want to show you what I mean about this. So again, just looking at the Maryland attack, which happened just yesterday. Okay, we're talking about 24 hours ago that this was reported. And look at how it's being reported. Look at how it's being reported. You're seeing that the news is talking about, well, there's a plot. A Maryland man planned to run down a crowd. You see almost none of them are mentioning that it's a terror attack, that it was ISIS inspired. Okay, the only one who's mentioning that it's ISIS inspired happened to be NBC, believe it or not, on their national desk, not local. But you see very little about whether or not it's a terror attack. And you can just look this up yourself. I'm on Google. Type in Maryland car attack plot. That'll bring it up. You can use a lot of different search engines, but you're going to see that the major media is downplaying this and the danger that this was. They're downplaying this because if we mention that crazy, deranged people will not be stopped just because someone says, well, we're going to punish legal, law-abiding citizens, then all of the gun control laws go out the window. And the plan to take your firearms, and they are taking your firearms. This is all about taking your ability to defend yourself from the government. That's what this is. That's what the red flag legislation is about. That's what the Safe Storage Act is about. That's what H.R. 686 and in the Senate S59 are about. They're about denying you your right to protect yourself, your family, your property from bad people as well as from the government. And that's an important thing to be able to protect yourself from. Now, not everyone agrees on that. That's okay. Not everyone has to. But what we're going to do is, let me take a quick break, and then we'll come back, and we'll talk a little more about this. Okay? We'll take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. All right, folks, and I'm glad to be back here with you. Sorry, we had a disturbance here in the office and the studio, and so I wanted to check that out. But I also want to take a moment to thank my friends. This is not a paid advertisement. This is just me speaking to you about my friends over at the Belmar Pub and also at the Park Diner. If you're in the Binghamton, New York region, please do check them out. They're great people, great service, great food. I enjoy it. I personally patronize both, and I would recommend it to anybody who happens to be in the Binghamton region. Please check them out. They're good people. So, and I apologize because there was an interruption, a disruption here in the studio, but the point was I was talking about the gun control bills, and one of the big questions that I have to ask, and I really think is important that we need to talk about, is why are we not hearing more about the Maryland attack, that this attempt, this bomb plot that was there, and also the one in Islamburg, New York. You know, why are we not hearing more about these cases? Why are we not hearing this as national news, where we're talking about people who are circumventing all of these things that are supposed... I'll tell you why I think it is. Because the fact is, you're not going to be safe. That none of the laws that are being passed in New York, in Colorado, in Maryland, in California, in Chicago, none of this is going to make you safer. It's not. It's not going to make you safer for a single day. And if you're trying to sleep well at night saying, well, I'm safer because the government has more control, and me as an individual and all the other individuals in this nation, the citizens here, we have that much less power, we have that much less freedom, and that'll let me sleep well at night because I'm safer? No, you're not. Not for a moment, not for a second. Let's dispel that illusion. You're not safer because the government has more power. And the proof is in the Islamburg plot that was done by kids who are under the age of 20 making bombs, and a gentleman, a crazed individual who was going out and using a car. He was planning to use a truck to copy the kind of insanity that we saw in Nice, France. Guess what? You're not being safer. The government having more power isn't giving you safety. It's just the government having more power. But that's one of the things, and I did want to finish up that thought from the prior segment before we go further. So I did want to finish that thought there. So let's also go and take a look at something else that I think that's important. And these are things that no one's really talking about. You're not hearing this in the news. I mean, everyone's talking about Barr, the AG Barr, and we're hearing about the Mueller report and when is that coming out. And quite honestly, that's not very important. Today I was listening to Congressman Anthony Brindisi of the New York 22nd District. He's talking about getting rid of robocalls, which, by the way, it's a nuisance. Yes, I think that's pretty neat. But as many callers locally spoke about in the New York 22nd District, it's great that you're getting rid of robocalls. Is that really the best that you can do? Is this the best we can expect from the Democrats? What have they been looking at? In the Democratic Party, since they took over, they got power in 2018, they won the elections for the midterm, Nancy Pelosi's at the helm, and what are we looking at them doing? They're going after 6 years of President Trump's tax returns. They're looking at the Mueller report, which they were screaming about that they were going to prove everything for them. It proves nothing except that they were wrong. And now they're investigating the Mueller report, looking for every single word to try and give some credibility back to their allegations that had no proof. What else are we seeing? What else are they doing? Robocalls? Really? Is that the best that we can do, is get rid of robocalls? Is that what Congress is looking at right now? Really? And, I know Anthony Brindisi for 6, 7 years now. I knew him before I knew him back in the New York State Assembly. I've known him, I've interviewed him. He won't come on this program and do the interview he has promised for the last 2.5 years. I don't know why, but that's okay. But I have to say, is that the best that we can expect from a member of Congress? Is that the best that we can expect from our Congress right now? Tax forms that have nothing to do with going forward in the nation or improving the nation. A Mueller report that has already discredited their claims that they're searching for every single word to try and still make the case of collusion for whatever reason, and obstruction for whatever reason, even though it doesn't exist. And they're doing robocalls. Is this what America is about? Is this the best we can expect from our government? Is this... Remember, members of Congress are elected to represent the people. In the case of the New York 22nd District, it was about 50.1% of the people elected Representative Anthony Brindisi. Okay. Do you think they were they there saying, gee, we have horrible unemployment in the New York 22nd District, Utica, and the poverty rates in Utica, the poverty rates in Binghamton, throughout the New York 22nd District are some of the highest in the nation, and definitely in New York State. The lack of jobs is incredible in these regions, and we are losing population. Do you think in that environment where we have few jobs, few well-paying jobs, where we have people leaving because of high taxation, where we have people who are in poverty and looking for a way to better their lives, do you think anyone really cares about whether or not they get an extra robocall, or whether or not the president made $1 billion or $900 million over the last 6 years? Do you really care? Is that going to change your life? Is that what you elected someone to do? Because I can't imagine that anyone elected anyone to go through someone to do a tax audit. That's not, by the way, it's actually a point of law. The president, and every president, always gets a tax audit once they get elected. So that's already being done. The IRS is already doing an audit and already done an audit on President Trump. Why is Congress doing an audit on the president? That's not important to the nation. Iran, as I mentioned in the last segment, is talking about killing everyone in America, whether you're part of the far left, if you're part of the far right, if you're anyone and everyone, whether you're a libertarian, you're a conservative, you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, they want to kill us all. They don't care. And you know what? Finding out what happened on the taxes for President Trump, or any president for that matter, really makes no difference. That's a cosmetic. That's politicking. It doesn't make a difference. 2 years plus into his presidency, it doesn't make a difference. We're focusing on the wrong thing. But remember, the reason why they're looking at these things, these distractions, is because they don't want you to remember certain things. And they don't want you to think about certain things. Kind of like if you remember, Bill Maher. Bill Maher had a very interesting statement that he made, and this was back on June of 2018, just before the 2018 election. What did Bill Maher say? Bill Maher said, there it is. Bill Maher mentioned that he wants to crash the economy, that he hopes the economy will crush. That's what we're looking at from the left. They want an economy that's not going to do well. Because if they can get that, you're not going to be completely distracted. If the economy goes bad, then that's bad for President Trump and good for them. For the 30 candidates that are running on the Democratic ticket. That's what they're looking for. And I have to tell you, I'm terrified of that. That's a horrible thing. And how are they doing this? They're doing this by very simply going out there and taking away jobs. Now, this is reported by Forbes. This was reported by Forbes magazine on, I believe it was just this week. I can't find the date. It was just a couple of days ago. And it's thanks to, oh, there it is. April 3rd, excuse me. It was April 3rd, last week, that Forbes published the article, thanks to the fight for $15 minimum wage, small businesses close and employees are laid off. This is in New York State. And this is also this is in Seattle. This is everywhere that the $15 minimum wage has been done. And you know who's responsible for this? SEIU. That's right, the Services Employees International Union, who is working with, guess who? Black Lives Matters. That's right. As the article notes, which I believe is an opinion piece, but in Forbes, in an attempt to increase their impact, the fight for $15 has partnered with activist group Black Lives Matter for tomorrow's protest, for a protest that was last week. This is part of the effort from the SEIU, who have spent about $90 million to get $15 an hour wages. And those wages, as predicted by the CBO in 2014, are losing people's jobs. People are losing jobs because of this. They're destroying the economy. People are no longer eating out in Manhattan, just like they stopped in Seattle. Businesses have closed, just like they did in Seattle. This has had a negative impact. It has increased the cost of doing business, so everyone is paying more. It is not helping the poorest people. It makes it worse for them. They have less hours, they have less work, and everything they need to buy costs more. Nobody wins in that scenario. It's not worth the trade-off. Kind of like with the red flag legislation, you're not getting anything for what you're being told. You're being sold a pipe dream. And that's really sad. That's really bad. And it's very annoying. And let's think about this. Again, Bill Maher said that he wants to crash the economy. Democrats want to crash the economy. And the $15 an hour wage is doing that. And they want to do it because if you go to and look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we just had the monthly data come out for March. Where is the economy right now? Remember, this is an economy that we were told before in the 2016 election. In 2017, we were promised this, that the economy we'd be in a recession, if not a depression, that President Trump would destroy the economy, that cutting taxes would destroy the economy, even though it's been promised for 30 years by every president of every party. No. What happened is, and this is the data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics directly, what do we see? We see that the number of people not in the labor force that increased by over 15 million under President Obama has stayed exactly the same. It's flatlined. We're not seeing people not try to get jobs. They're going out there and working. We're seeing that the unemployment rate is at 3.8%, holding steady, which is down from last year, even though we have more people in the workforce. We have more people working today than we did a year ago, and the unemployment rate is lower today than it was then. And the people who are not part of the labor force, people who are not counted, still are not being counted. That means we have a positive economy. That means we're going on the right track. But when was the last time you saw CNN or MSNBC or any of the major news networks talk about how good our economy is, how well it is working, or how badly the $15 an hour minimum wage has been hurting people? When was the last time you heard that? Because that's a really important thing. And I have to ask you, why aren't they telling you that? Why won't they let you know that? What is it they're trying to give you? What kind of impression? They're talking about how horrible everything is, how the economy is doing so badly. So badly. Everything is going bad. Trump is bad for everyone. Everything is going bad. But while they keep saying that, you know what we're not seeing? A bad economy. We're seeing people do better, except in places like New York State or California, which have ridiculous debts. New York State has over $2 billion debt loss. We lost revenue on top of the debt that we have. And so the answer, and that was because we have high taxes. So the answer by Andrew Cuomo was, let's increase the taxes. Yeah, that's kind of shocking. The answer was, let's increase taxes. Because driving people out, that's okay. That's just crazy. That's just crazy. And we got to remember, look at this. And one of the biggest numbers that I always like to follow here is this one right here. That is the self-employed, the number of small businesses in the nation. And we can see that that's been hovering around 9 million. That is a very important number because that's why we have such a low employment rate. The closer we are to 9 or more million, that's the number of small businesses, that's mom and pops, that's people getting jobs, getting employed, growing businesses, improving our trade. That's what helps the nation grow. That number, by the way, was down around, was under 7 million under President Obama because he believed government creates business and the economy tanked. This is the difference. No one's telling you this, and they really need to. We really need to focus on what's going well, because if we don't, we're going to be in big, big trouble. So I'm going to take another very quick break. We'll come back with the last couple of minutes of the show, and then we'll talk a little bit more. But I'll be right back. I think I'll be right back. All right, folks, thank you for being here at the ever incredible No Soundbites Allowed podcast. And I want to again say thanks to my friends over at the Belmar Pub and, of course, the Park Diner. They are great friends of mine. They have great food there. I hope that you get a chance to check them out. So with that said, in the final minutes here, let's talk about the 2020 presidential race. Whoops, it's off. And let's talk about what's going on. Because what have we been hearing? Very much like what we've heard from Bill Maher, that the economy is, we have a problem, even though we don't have a problem. But you listen to Andrew Cuomo, and he even admits it himself. Tax the rich. Tax the rich. And what happened? The rich left. Because that's not an effective answer. It doesn't work. It doesn't help anyone. It's not a benefit. So what we really need to do is look at how can we actually help everyone. And does the Mueller report help anyone advance the nation? I understand. We searched it for 2 years. Everyone, Democrats promised that that was a big problem. Well, we're past that now. We know it's not a big deal. We know nothing happened. Russia did not interfere with our election. I know some people want it to be that way, but that didn't happen. So the answer is we need to move forward. Moving forward doesn't mean let's go and look at the past tax returns. It doesn't mean let's go and do reparations. I mean, that's the big thing. Democrats have moved on, and they're apologizing for being white. They're apologizing for being born male. They're out there saying, we're going to give you money, Andrew Yang. We're going to give you $1,000 a month. And there's some caveats to that because you won't actually get $1,000. But he said the big headline is, I'm going to give you $1,000 every month, with an asterisk that says, well, not really. You won't get that much. But he's saying, I want to buy your vote, essentially. And we hear Kamala Harris, who wants to give poor people $650 a month, a little over $6,000 a year, to be poor. She wants to pay people to be poor, as she said in New Hampshire in December of 2018. We hear Cory Booker, we need reparations. Yes, everyone wants reparations because we're going to buy the black vote. Because that's what it is. It's buying the black vote. Can we make a case for reparations? Sort of. Should we? Probably not. Is it something that they're using to try and manipulate people? Absolutely. And the thing is, that promotes that negative stereotype, that division in our nation. Democrats are promoting division. They're promoting separation. They're supporting you as an identity, a group, a category, not as a human being. They're not trying to improve your life. They're trying to promote political agendas for certain groups that they hope to have control over. And we need to recognize what that is. And when Democrats aren't getting what they want, when they're not getting what they expect to receive, what is the answer from the Democratic Party and all of their operatives across the world? Across the nation. Their answer is, let's crash the economy. Let's hurt the people we're saying that we want to vote for. That's what they do. They're willing to crash the economy. They're willing to hurt you so they can have a political gain. They're willing to distract you with the Mueller report. They're willing to distract you with tax returns rather than do something important. They're willing to put out bills like the robocall bill, which fine. That's something that can't hurt. It's not a bad thing, except why is that a focus when there are so many other issues that are so important right now? If you didn't get another robocall from this day forward, is that going to help you get a job? Is that going to help your job make more money? Is that going to help you keep money in your pocket from the taxes that you're paying? Is that going to get your kids into college? Colleges that the rich, the Democrats that are rich, that are telling you about how bad you are for not doing what they say, are bribing people to get their kids into a class and denying your kid who earned it the opportunity. Your kid earns a spot at some of the top schools, and they deny your kid because this other rich Democrat decided to buy their way in. This is the dichotomy that we're talking about. This is what the Democrats have been doing. They're distracting you, and they're trying to buy your vote cheap. Now, if they come up with a great candidate, fantastic. Let's hear that candidate. If they want to talk about issues, let's talk about the issues. Let's actually deal with the focus of what's going on in our nation. Let's talk about improving things. But guess what? You're not going to get a conversation about improving things by having people buy their way into colleges, by talking about past taxes, about trying to prove something that has already been disproven with the Mueller report. That's not advancing the nation. Not while we have enemies in Iran who are out there saying death to America. Not while we have an economy that is improving but needs to be nurtured. Just because things are better now doesn't mean they stay that way. We have to stay on top of that. And if we're distracted, we'll never be able to keep the economy in a good spot like it is right now. The economy that Obama said could never happen again. The economy that Bill Maher and many others have said they want to get rid of. This is the difference. This is what 2020 is about. And they're going to tell you that if you disagree, well, that's because you're a man, or you're white, or you're a Republican, or a conservative, that you don't appreciate or understand things. And that's just a lie. That's guilt. That's guilt tripping you. That's ostracizing you. Oh, you're the bad person. You're all by yourself because you're wrong. No. Let's call them out for what it is and what they are doing. They're trying to buy votes on the cheap. They're trying to distract people, and they have the major media doing it. They're lying to you about safety because we're not addressing the root problem. The Maryland attempt to kill people with a car is based in something evil, and we need to address that and protect ourselves from that. But we can't do that if the entire time we're hearing our leaders talk about, well, you're already safe, because we stopped innocent, law-abiding citizens from being able to use a gun to protect their homes and their families. You've completely sidestepped the problem. And we know this because the guy was going to use a car. That kids were going to use bombs. And they're not isolated. This happens a lot because we know for a fact Chicago shows us consistently and repeatedly more laws that duplicate laws that already exist. Murder is already illegal. Duplicating that law doesn't make you safer. It hasn't, and it won't. Let's be honest. Let's be direct. Let's be truthful. Not truthiness about our feelings. Let's be factual. Let's pay attention to the details. Because then we can get to the things that will be able to help us continue to have the greatest nation in the world. That's what I think. You may disagree. You may think I missed something or I'm not understanding something, and I'm here to listen to you. So let me know. And we'll be back on Thursday at 1 p.m. We'll be speaking with Dr. Paul Nathanson, who will be addressing some of these very same issues that I've just brought up. And we'll be talking about how the Democratic outlook is going to affect our kids and our future in America. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm also looking forward to being with you. Please let us know your thoughts on Twitter at MV Consult, on Facebook, at the Boss Political Commentary page. We're always here for you. We're always looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And of course, if you are on Facebook, let us know. You can go to our some of our other videos. You can check out the latest video, and please don't forget to subscribe because it all matters. We thank you for that. I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. And until then, I want you to be well. Thank you very much.